The fluorescent lights of ValueMart hummed like a swarm of disgruntled bees overhead, casting a sterile glow over our 7 home and hearth essentials. Dust motes danced in the beams, undisturbed by the usual bustle. It was Tuesday at 3:17 p.m., the dead zone between lunch rush and after-school chaos, and I was restocking ceramic mugs when I heard it, the unmistakable click-clack of stilettos on linoleum, followed by a sigh so theatrical it could have closed a Broadway show. I didn't look up. Not yet. But I knew. That sound, that sigh, they belonged to her. Marjorie Winthrop. Not her real name, of course, but the one I'd assigned her in my head after the 3rd time she demanded to speak to someone who actually understands customer service. She wore pastel twinsets-like armor and carried a handbag the size of a small suitcase, stuffed with complaint forms, expired coupons, and what I suspected was a laminated list of store policies she'd annotated in red ink. "Excuse me," she said, voice sharp enough to slice deli meat. "I need to file a formal complaint." I turned slowly, mug in hand, and offered my most neutral smile, the one I'd perfected after 4 years behind the counter, the one that said I'm listening without promising I care. "Of course, What seems to be the issue?" She thrust a crumpled receipt at me like it was evidence in a murder trial. "This toaster. It's defective." I glanced at the receipt. Purchased 3 days ago. Standard 2-year warranty. Nothing unusual. "I'm sorry to hear that. What's it doing or not doing?" "It's too loud," she hissed, as if volume were a moral failing. "When it pops, it startles my poodle, Mr. Whiskers. He hasn't eaten since. I demand a replacement, one that operates silently." I blinked. All toasters make a popping sound when the timer releases. "It's mechanical." "Then give me one that doesn't," she snapped. "Or refund me. And compensate me for Mr. Whiskers' emotional distress." I could have laughed. Should have. But ValueMart Policy, Section 4.2, Paragraph B, stated, all customer complaints must be addressed in good faith, with the goal of 100% satisfaction. And Marjorie? She'd weaponized that clause like a samurai with a katana. So I did what any seasoned retail drone would do. I nodded solemnly. "Per your request, we'll process a full refund. And, we'll look into sourcing a quieter model for future inventory." She smirked, victorious. "Good. See that you do." She strutted off, heels echoing like gunshots. I watched her go, then turned to my manager, Carl, who'd been lurking near the coffee pods, pretending to check expiration dates. "You heard that?" I asked. Carl sighed, rubbing his temples. "Yeah. Just refund her. Don't make waves." But something in me, maybe the 4th cup of burnt breakroom coffee, maybe the memory of my HOA battle, maybe just the sheer absurdity of being held accountable for a dog's appetite, snapped. "No," I said quietly. "I'm not refunding her. I'm fulfilling her request." Verbatim. Carl frowned. "What are you talking about?" "She asked for a silent toaster," I said, already walking toward the electronics section. "So I'm going to give her one." 2 days later, Marjorie returned. This time, she brought Mr. Whiskers a trembling puff of white fur in a rhinestone harness. She marched straight to customer service, where I was waiting, clipboard in hand. "Ah, Ms. Winthrop," I said brightly. "We took your feedback very seriously." I gestured to the counter, where a sleek, stainless steel toaster sat under a plastic dome like a museum exhibit. It was the top-of-the-line WhisperToast Pro 9000, retailing at $299, 3 times the price of her original model. I'd special-ordered it overnight using the store's executive customer satisfaction budget, a line item so rarely used it might as well have been myth. Her eyes widened. "Is that silent?" "Completely," I said. "No springs. No pop. Just gentle, heat-controlled ejection. Tested in an anechoic chamber." She reached for it greedily, but I held up a hand. "There's a condition." She froze. "A condition?" "Yes," I said, sliding a form across the counter. Per ValueMart Policy Addendum 12C, when a customer requests a product modification outside standard specifications, they must sign a waiver of expectation and acknowledgement of custom fulfillment. She squinted at the form. It was dense legalese, but the gist was simple. By accepting this item, you acknowledge that it has been altered to meet your exact verbal request, and you waive all future complaints related to its performance. She signed without reading it. Of course she did. I handed her the toaster, boxed and pristine. Enjoy your silent mornings. She left, smug. Mr. Whiskers yapped once, just for spite. For 36 hours, peace reigned. Then, at 11:03 a.m. on Thursday, the storm hit. Marjorie burst through the front doors like a Category 5 hurricane in a cardigan. Her hair was askew, her face flushed, and she was dragging the toaster by its cord like it owed her money. "I want to speak to the manager," she shrieked, drawing a crowd near the seasonal candy display. "This toaster is broken." Carl appeared instantly, panic in his eyes. He shot me a look that said, "What did you do?" I stepped forward calmly. "Ms. Winthrop, is there an issue with your Whisper Toast Pro?" "An issue?" she screeched. "It doesn't work. I put in bread, set the dial, and nothing. No heat. No toast. Just silence." I tilted my head. "But, you asked for silence." "Yes, but not no function. It's supposed to toast bread quietly, not sit there like a paperweight." I blinked slowly. "Did you read the user manual?" "What manual?" There wasn't one. I reached under the counter and produced a single sheet of paper printed in 8-point font. "Ah. That's because the manual is digital. Per your request for a silent appliance, we removed all audible alerts, including the startup chime, the ready beep, and the toast complete tone. But more importantly, I pointed to a line near the bottom. The heating element is disabled by default to prevent accidental noise from thermal expansion. To activate it, you must hold the lever down for exactly 47 seconds while simultaneously pressing the defrost and bagel buttons." She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "That's insane." "Per your request," I said sweetly, "we engineered a toaster that makes zero sound. The only way to ensure absolute silence is to eliminate all mechanical and thermal noise sources. The 47-second activation sequence is silent, requires no moving parts, and critically, produces no pop." She sputtered. But that's not what I meant." "I fulfilled your request exactly as stated," I said, voice steady. "You said, give me a toaster that operates silently. Not quietly. Not less loudly. Silently. And this one does. No springs. No clicks. No pops. No hum. Nothing." Carl was pale. "Elena, is this legal?" "Check the waiver she signed," I said. She acknowledged that the product was customized to her verbal specifications. Marjorie lunged for the toaster. "I'm returning this monstrosity." "Of course," I said. "But per Addendum 12C, custom-fulfilled items are non-refundable. However, we can offer store credit minus a 30% restocking fee for deactivation and recalibration." Her mouth opened and closed like a goldfish. "You can't do this." "I can," I said. And I did. Per your request. The story should have ended there. It didn't. 2 days later, a lawyer's letter arrived. Marjorie was suing ValueMart for emotional distress, deceptive trade practices, and canine neglect. Corporate panicked. Carl was ordered to fire me. But then, something unexpected happened. A video surfaced online. Grainy, shot on a phone from the seasonal candy aisle. It showed Marjorie screaming about her poodle while I stood calm, professional, reciting policy. The caption read, "Retail worker gives Karen exactly what she asked for. Justice." It went viral. Within hours, #PerYourRequest was trending. Memes flooded Twitter. Reddit threads dissected the legal nuances. News outlets called. One even interviewed Carl, who, under pressure, admitted that Marjorie had a history of frivolous complaints across 3 states. Then came the twist. A woman named Diane Carter messaged me on LinkedIn. She worked for a luxury appliance brand. "We've been watching," she wrote. "That 47-second sequence. Genius. We're developing a silent kitchen line for high-end condos. Want to consult?" But the real bombshell dropped a week later. Marjorie's poodle, Mr. Whiskers, had been found abandoned in a park wearing a diamond-studded collar worth $8,000. Animal control traced him back to her. Turns out, she'd been hoarding dozens of distressed pets, using them as props in her complaint schemes. The local news dug deeper: fake vet bills, staged photos, even a GoFundMe for traumatized Mr. Whiskers. The lawsuit evaporated. ValueMart issued a public statement praising my commitment to policy integrity. Corporate even awarded me the Customer Service Excellence Bonus $5,000 and a framed certificate. But the best part? Marjorie never set foot in ValueMart again. I still work aisle 7. The fluorescent lights still hum. But now, when a customer demands something absurd, I just smile and say, per your request. And I mean every word. 6 months later, I quit retail. Took the consulting gig. Now I design user experiences that balance innovation with accountability. Sometimes, I teach workshops on ethical malicious compliance for corporate training programs. And every morning, without fail, I make toast. In a regular, noisy, gloriously popping toaster. Because some things shouldn't be silent. Not even for Mr. Whiskers.